Everyone talks about US frontier models for coding, but today we are going to code with something different. A free IDE powered by a Chinese open source model that runs on non-US chips. It is called ZCode. What it actually does for a real dev workflow and where it breaks compared to Cursor and Copilot. According to VentureBeat, Z.I launched ZCode as a dedicated AI coding IDE that directly targets Cursor, Claude Code, and GitHub Copilot. So this is not a side plugin. It is the whole editor. That matters because your entire coding loop, from chat to refactors to file navigation, is designed around AI from the start. Under the hood, VentureBeat says ZCode is built around GLM-5.2, an open-source large model trained entirely on Chinese chips. Z.A is very loud about that, because it is proof you can get a strong coding model without touching US GPUs, which becomes important if access to your current favorite model suddenly disappears. VentureBeat points to a recent US government directive as a warning. Some top coding models were just switched off for certain users overnight. So the bet ZCode is making is simple. Even if GLM-5.2 is not always the best model, having a serious non-US fallback might be better than losing your main tool mid-project. Let us set up ZCode and put it in the same role as Copilot or Cursor, so you can see how it actually behaves. I will use it on a small but real task, wiring a simple HTTP API and some tests in a language many of you use every day. First, we install ZCode from Z.I and open a fresh project so you see the flow you would use on your own machine. Think of this as a drop-in replacement for VS Code plus your favorite coding agent, but with GLM-5.2 as the default brain. ZCode ships as a free IDE, but according to VentureBeat, it is tightly coupled to a subscription coding plan, which means the real product is your quota of AI tokens. This is closer to a phone plan than a one-time editor purchase, and you will feel it if you live in the IDE all day. Right now, through July 31st, VentureBeat reports that the ZCode coding plan gives a 1.5 times effective quota bonus compared to the baseline. So if your normal quota is a 1x bucket, the promo lets you burn the equivalent of 1.5 buckets of GLM-5.2 coding for the same subscription price. It gets more interesting with time of day. According to ZI's pricing numbers, off-peak tokens are charged at 0.67x, while peak tokens are charged at 1x, which means the same logical request eats fewer tokens at quiet hours. Translated into dev life, if you batch your heavy refactors, code generation, and test writing into off-peak windows, your 1.5x promo quota stretches a lot further than the baseline 1x. If you code mostly at midday peaks, the plan feels closer to a normal quota with a small safety margin, not an infinite coding buffet. Where ZCode is quietly smart is model routing. VentureBeat notes that it supports multiple AI models and agents, including Claude Code, Codex, Gemini, and OpenCode, sitting next to GLM-5.2 inside the same IDE. So you do not have to bet everything on GLM-5.2. You can put GLM on routine code completion, send tricky reasoning to Claude Code, and keep Gemini for cross-language questions, all in one editor, which is something Copilot and Cursor do not fully match yet. In our test project, GLM-5.2 handled the boring glue code and tests pretty well, but it felt less sharp than Claude on explaining unfamiliar libraries. That actually lines up with the VentureBeat view that the so-called fallback could still beat your primary tool in certain workflows, especially if your main tool ever goes dark. VentureBeat argues that with ZCode and GLM-5.2, the coding agent market in the second half of 2026 becomes more global, not just a US export. My read is that this also shifts risk, because you can design your toolchain so no single government, chip vendor, or model provider can freeze your entire stack. If you are a working developer, the move I would make is this: keep your main IDE and agent, but install ZCode, route some routine work through GLM-5.2 during the promo, and measure how it handles your actual code base. If it fits and your quota math checks out, you have a real Copilot level backup that runs on non-US hardware. Next, we are going to keep tracking tools like this that change how you ship code. So if you want more hands-on tests instead of hype, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.